so this is part 2 of stoichiometry, and we're going to talk about yields. Remember, yield is just how much you get. So in our chemical equation, the line, the arrow that we have, that's yields. So a yield is how much of your product. So we're talking about the cookie recipe that we used in the last video. Yield is the 76 cookies or 114 cookies, whichever it was. All right, so yield is how much you get. So actual yield is just what it says, how much from actually completing the reaction. All right, so how much you get from actually doing the experiment, as opposed to, oh, there's the recipe, 76 cookies, duh. All right, theoretical yield is how much you should get. All right, so if we're looking at this recipe, this 76 cookies is the theoretical yield. So if you look on recipes, it'll tell you how much you should get from this recipe, but that's not always what you get, because think about it. When you bake cookies, they maybe are talking about, I don't know, 2-ounce cookies, okay? But if you're like me, when you bake cookies, boy, you bake the big old 5-ounce cookies. So if you bake the big old 5-ounce cookies as opposed to the 2-ounce cookies, you're not going to get 76 cookies. So it just depends on the portion size that you make for each cookie. Now, if we're talking about chemical equations, then chemical equations do not proceed with 100% efficiency. Sometimes because of the temperature or because of other factors, there are errors. And if you perform a chemical equation and it says that you should get 76 grams of your product, but you don't, you only get 70 grams of your product, those are different yields. Okay, this 70 grams is the actual yield. It's actual yield that you got from conducting the experiment. This is the theoretical yield that it says that on paper, that's what you should get. So we can use these two pieces of information to calculate what's called a percent yield. What percent did you get from that experiment? Well, the actual yield divided by the theoretical yield. So actual yield divided by the theoretical yield, okay, and then convert that into a percent. So when we do this, it's going to give us a decimal. Okay, so I just grabbed my calculator. Okay. So it's the actual yield, 70 divided by 76. Now, how do we make that into a percent? Multiply it by 100. So that's 92.105%. So this is going to be at, after we multiply the answer by 100, that's going to give us 92%. Now that's pretty good to get a 92% yield. So what you want to shoot for is a 90% or better yield. So if you conduct an experiment, and let's just say that you get, it says that you should get 76 grams, but you only get 20 grams. So that's going to be 20 divided by 76. And then multiply that answer by 100 to get percent. That's 26% yield. That is horrible. Something went wrong. You measured something incorrectly somewhere. And so what you would want to do is throw that out and redo the experiment. because that's not very good. So what you're shooting for is 90% or better on your yields. Okay. All right. So let's do one example here. Okay. It says the following reaction was performed in the lab and produced 30.3 grams of ammonia. State the theoretical yield, the actual yield, and the percent yield. All right, so it tells us that it produced 30.3 grams. What yield is that? Okay, it says that it was done in a lab, so this is going to be the actual yield. Okay, that's what we got when we actually did the experiment. Okay, so to get the theoretical yield, we're going to have to, well, it's either going to tell us that we should get this much, but normally what it's going to do is it's going to give you some information like this and have you calculate a theoretical yield, which we can do because we learned that in our last video, stoichiometry. So here we have 26.0 grams of nitrogen, okay, and this is N2. And remember, we want to convert this to moles. So we want to get rid of grams of nitrogen and convert it to moles of nitrogen, okay, N2. So 1 mole of nitrogen is, well, nitrogen is, we have 2 moles of it times 14.01. So that's going to be 28.02. And if you don't remember how to do this or you don't know what I'm doing here, go back and review the very end of the last video on stoichiometry where I show you how to get molar mass for converting between grams and moles. All right, so grams is canceled here. So this is going to give us moles of N2. Okay. But we don't want moles of N2. We're trying to calculate this, how much NH3. So I'm going to go ahead and do another conversion. So moles of N2 to moles of NH3. Okay, so what's this ratio? 1 to 2. So 1 mole of N2 to 2 moles of NH3. Okay, so that cancels. Okay, we're going to extend this again because we don't want moles. We want grams. So we compare grams to grams because it's hard to compare moles to grams. So we need to convert it to grams of NH3. So we want to get rid of moles of NH3. We want to convert that to grams of NH3. Okay, so what's the molar mass? 1 mole is equal to, well, we have N at 14.01. There's only 1 mole of this. And we have hydrogen, 3 moles times 1.01. Oops, 1. I was thinking ahead because that's 3.03. And we're going to add that to our 14.01. So that's 0.17.04. Okay, so our moles cancels out there and we're left in grams. Now we can compare this. We just have to do our calculation first. Okay, so let's grab our calculator. 26.0 times 2 times 17.04. All of that's divided by 28.02. That's going to give us 31.623. Okay, so 31.623. Sig fig's just 3. We'll drop those 2 off. So this is our what yield? Well, we calculated that. So it's not an actual yield. That is a theoretical yield because it's a calculation. This is according to the proportions, the molar ratios, and what we're starting off with. This is what we should get, but we didn't. We only got this much. So we're going to take our actual yield divided by our theoretical yield. Okay, grams cancels grams, so we're just going to be left with a number. We're going to multiply by 100% to get it into a percentage. Okay, so that's 30.3 divided by 31.6 times 100. And we're going to get 3 sig figs, 95.9%. That's pretty darn good. I would take that to the bank. All right. So that's how you calculate yields. Short, sweet. Remember to slap that like button right across the face, subscribe, and like this video.